This is an interview, but it's now part two on this Kirblog. Kevin, Dave joined me and you. There's a little Crescent Island for you. Welcome, everybody. It's a couple weeks later. I am once again joined by the illustrious Kev Bayliss and David Wise. Excellent character designer, artist, and music composer for video games. And when we last left our heroes, we were reminiscing about how much we loved Diddy Kong Racing for like 30 minutes. That was fun. How are you doing, guys?
We're good, thank you.
Excellent. Got your
Very
coffee.
good, thank you.
I was saying off camera, I trust nothing catastrophic in the world has happened the last 2 weeks somehow, other than Halloween, I guess. Yeah. So let's start off a little slow here. Let's do some cute stuff again, because I'm curious about your lives outside of just the work. What's if at all? I know maybe when you're working on video games, all day, maybe that's the last thing you wanna be looking at in your leisure time. But are there any games that you play outside of work, whether you've made them or not, that you really enjoy over the years?
If I get time, it's getting time there because there's a whole host of other things to do, like looking after the family and playing gigs and that kind of stuff. So sometimes, yes, but not very often. Not often enough.
It always amazes me. Everybody at work says, "Have you played this?" And they're all the feeds going on the chat at Playtonic, and everybody's talking about this game and that game, and I haven't got a clue what they're talking about because I don't because I played them so much when I was a kid, and I played them so much when I was at Rare, and then I took my break, and then I come back into it, and I don't see how I can fit that much time. I haven't got the time to invest in playing anything that's a big game. Mm-hmm. So this is why I bought all the mini consoles, and I just keep coming back to all the old stuff. And I was playing Earthbound the other day because I never actually played it when it was first out, and I just sit in a room and I'll just turn the lights down, and it's like I'm back in the 90s again, and I'll just play something like a retro game, even some of the old the arcade games, something really old, but at the moment, by the time you've finished doing graphics for the day, my eyes will need a rest, and so I'll take the dog a walk, do whatever, and then watch TV, or then begin working on the Salamandos comic again. There isn't that many hours to play a game. I feel guilty if I start playing the games, because I just think, God, I should be walking a dog, or I should be doing some exercise, or I should be drawing the comic, or I should be doing something else. But then I have short bursts particularly on the mini, because the minis are great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because it's still, even for me, I mean, N64 is still my favorite console. I keep wishing Nintendo might make like an N64 mini with a bunch of stuff loaded on there, because they got a bunch of it on the Switch, I guess, part of the online thing or whatever. But
they've got to, haven't they? Though.
Oh yeah. Actually, it was kind of a big deal. Not one that you guys worked on, but they actually just put Banjo on the Switch online service, which I was kind of shocked about. I was like, oh wow, way to play ball, Microsoft. Good on you guys. Yeah, no, it's fun. Well, Earthbound, interesting example, because I mean, for an RPG, like that's one that not that it's it's not a 40-hour Final Fantasy kind of experience, but even then, an RPG is still kind of a time commitment for time off. But well, that also led into my next one perfectly. Outside of games, what do you guys like to do for fun? Just in those spare moments of time between being workaholics, probably much like myself.
This last weekend, I was playing with my friend's band. In fact, Nige, who's our drummer in the Dave Wise 5, he has a Bon Jovi band, and he's a singer in that band. And I've been helping him out because his keyboard player had to take a few months break for various health reasons. So I've been helping them. So I did the last one with him in Bishop Stortford on Saturday night, which was kind of fun. So fun to do, but they take endless amounts of time.
Yeah.
So we mentioned about video games taking endless amounts of time, which they do, but for this I had to leave mid-afternoon, travel all the way down there, set up, play the gig, come back. I didn't get back until 3 a.m. So it's fun, but I can't afford to invest that much time. Yeah. However, the next gig we've got is in Norway. Kev's coming along, Kev's singing with us. and that's in Sandefjord on the 27th, Saturday the 27th of November. So get yourself over to Sandefjord. Be a great gig.
Yes, my God. I was going to say, when you just to speak to that for a second, when you do live shows like MacFest and stuff,
Yes.
what instruments do you find yourself playing often?
This time I'm playing saxophone and my wind synth Uwe, which basically means electronic wind instrument.
Nice. Wow. Good Lord. Kev, how about
Well,
you?
We're dragging our guitarist over, and obviously Kevin, and we're borrowing a drummer from Norway as well for that particular show.
Well, all Norwegians are good musicians, I've found. So
But hopefully, yes. If not, they'll be very quiet.
I don't play any instruments. I just play the fool. I tried it once, didn't I, Dave? I did the guitar once, and Dave said to me politely at the end, "You're a lot more entertaining when you're just singing." So it was one of those things. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sing and play at the same time. So I would ditch that.
I'm no musician. I write lyrics sometimes. That's about the extent of my my compositional ability, I guess.
Well, it worked for Bernie talking.
Good fun writing. But
oh yeah.
Other than that, anything in my whatever spare time. It's been the last year or so we've been renovating the house, so that's been taking up most of the time.
Yeah.
Other than that, maybe if it's a nice day, I might take a ride out on a motorbike and just because I'm in a nice area of the UK where they've got a lot of real good roads in the hills. So it's sort of north, sort of Midlands area where there's an area called the Peak District, and it's just fantastic country for riding on a bike. It's very popular. So not like Dave. Dave does a proper biking. We all used to go mountain biking. Dave still does that, but I say my exercise has just stopped at the moment. So all I do is get on the other bike and start it up, and off it goes. But
so some of that is driven by a bad back. A few years ago, I got a really bad back. In fact, I got sciatica, and it left me.
Yeah.
Left me on the floor for probably months. But if I cycle regularly and cycle at least an hour a day or at least 25k a day, then I don't get backache. But it's every day.
Yeah,
it's the trouble when you get old like us. You got to keep moving.
Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, I'm learning. I'm 32. I'm about to be 33 in like a second. But like, I'm learning that. You know, I think I mentioned before. I screwed up my arms real bad making my own game, and now I'm working out twice a day. And I'm like, I should have been doing this years ago. So, and kids out there, if you're in a creative field of any kind, usually that involves being hunched over a computer, whether you got your arm or your keyboard or your mouse or your tablet, whatever, exercise.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing it since 1987, and although it wasn't always on a monitor at a desk, it used to be sort of lying across a great big draftsman's desk.
Yeah.
As soon as we switched to computers, I've got a problem with the tendons in my right hand. I've got a problem with my neck, got a problem with my back, and it's all from just sitting there in that locked. It's like a pose. It's like you go into not a karate pose, but it's like a use Maya mode, and my right arm is in this position. And my left arm is in this position. It doesn't do your shoulders any good. You've got to keep moving. So, kids, move.
Yes. Whereas on the whole, another good tip there is to stand up whilst you work, because it increases your productivity and it keeps you moving as well.
Yeah, get a standy up, sitty downy desk. I bought one that goes on top of my desk, and it sort of like hydraulics, and it just goes up and you're standing up. But I'm still too lazy though, because unless I've got a really bad back, I'll stand up for about half an hour, and it depends on what kind of software you're using. I can't use my standing up, but I can draw standing up. Yeah. But I ended up standing up for like 10 minutes ago. Stop this and sit down again.
I actually just got literally like a month or two ago one of those, and I'm going to use that from now on. City up, standy downy desks, and
they are good.
My wrists are thanking me very much so for that.
Yeah. So I actually spend most of my time standing up per day, and only sit down when I really have to. Which I don't like doing because I don't get as much done, and I'd rather spend less time doing stuff because I like to work quickly, preferably.
Doing the graphics, for you until I think it was the early 90s, we started adopting using a pen rather than a mouse to move the 3D software around. And I'm looking at my hand now, and it's like a claw because it's everything. The cursor on this screen as I move it around when I'm moving Skype around and stuff like that. it's all done with a little Wacom tablet and a pen. And so all day from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock at night, then a break and then back at it again. This hand is permanently in that holding a pen pose, and your head is crunched, so it sort of hunched over it. So it really doesn't do your muscles any good. Unfortunately, video games companies are, many companies now, they're just taking care of people because they don't want them all to be hunched up and not being able to move. They need to be able to move, so they're doing as much as they can to let people have an ergonomic desk and a better workstation. So
don't need any lawsuits happening.
No, you've got to do it. Everyone has to be comfortable, or else, because you're going to spend a lot of your life sitting in that position if you're going to take that as a career choice. So.
I going back a little bit, actually, Dave, you mentioned you got kids and stuff as well. I imagine for the last 25, 30 years, as video games, just as a medium, have become so much more accepted by the mainstream. It's just like everybody knows and plays video games of some kind. What do your family? Both of you, what do your families think of the work that you do? Have any particular things that they've really grown to appreciate, like, seeing all the stuff that you guys have gotten to do throughout your whole careers?
I think when my eldest, he's working at the moment, but when he was younger, he used to find it quite impressive, or at least his school friends did. And then, the novelty kind of wears off, and really the same with my daughter, because she used to be impressed as well, but not anymore. She's got far more interesting things to do now. Yeah. And neither of them want to go into video games, which is good.
Spare them the heartache.
Exactly. It's a very enjoyable gig, but it's a tough one as well.
For sure, yeah. But we do it because we have no other. Absolutely. Do we have any other applicable social skills? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why we're travelling to Norway, to hone those social skills. In fact, one of the things that we're doing is a Diddy Kong racing medley with us with a.
I got to see that.
There we go. Yeah, get on the flight, book it. Travels from.
I'm on my way to Norway as we speak.
Manchester.
All right, so let's move back into the geekdom here. All right, so there's some particular things I want to get into, but I find that an interesting sort of origin point. Kev, I want to talk about Timber the Tiger a little bit, because I was looking up some other things in preparation for part 2 today. So there was at one point you had a concept for some kind of like platformer adventure game with him, and he was on all fours like an actual tiger. Like, this character clearly has been with you for a long time, as we'll find out kind of his history through DKR and then eventually Dinosaur Planet as well. What was it just like, I'll make a cool animal character, let me make my own kind of little mascotty type dude? What was kind of the whole genesis of him?
I think I was quite into, I remember my first pet. I had this grey cat, this huge grey cat, and I was just fascinated by him. And when we first started looking at the 3D software for doing the graphics, and I was playing around with Killer Instinct, before it became Killer Instinct, when we were making the rough models, well, they weren't rough, they were what I thought were going to be the models at the time. One of the things I wanted to do was build like a cat, something like a panther, or something like a Thundercats character.
Sure.
And I started making this I think around about that time, wasn't Aladdin at the cinema anyway, and so we'd all seen that amazing sort of cave that was shaped like a cat's head, and so I started building this cat in what was called Power Animator at the time, and I think I formed that into a character, and that was going to be before the humans all started appearing in Brute Force. Killer Instinct. It was a tiger, and it was sort of like, I guess, what Saberwolf became.
Oh, okay.
And I'd got tiger stripes on him, and he didn't make it in. And I think I eventually took the head from it, and I used that as the head in Jago's temple.
Okay.
So and I also used it as the I was recycling these graphics. I used the head and the body and used it as Orchid's Orchid's special move, where she could send the cat against like a fiery cat that went forward. But I can remember when we moved from that and we went onto the N64. It was a guy called Chris Tilston, who was one of the lead designers on Killer Instinct. He was responsible for a lot of the way it controlled and a lot of the movement. He wanted to set something up on the N64 when we were starting to work on that, and he wanted to do a platformer. And I think it was just more or less a two-man team to begin with. We were just sort of playing around with a small sort of diorama, a little level. I think the level may have even been made by Chris Seaver. I think we all started branching out onto different projects, but I think we made a small level, and I built this cat, and I thought I'm going to make it like Simba from the Lion King. I just wanted. I think actually at the time I went with my girlfriend at the time to go and visit one of these centres where you could pet small animals and like wild animals, and there was a small tiger cub. And I was just blown away by this character. It was brilliant, really heavy little, duty little thing. And it was fantastic. So I'm going to build that, and I'm going to make this cat on all fours. And we thought it would be a great character for a platformer, because we wanted it to sort of walk along the walls horizontally and vertically, and sort of 9 degrees to the ground, like as if it was Spider-Man, using his claws to sort of grab in.
To ask real quick, because I'm remembering real quick, because Chris Tilston, I think, he was meant to direct, I think it was Conquer 64. Was this concept before that? Because I know that was obviously meant to be a platform.
Yeah, this was before. Okay. Yeah, because I think they were working on Conquer to begin with, but we sort of tried this tiger. Okay. And I can remember I built a NURBS model of it in Paranimator, and it was rendered, and then you would render shots of it from different angles to make textures and place it on this little low polygon, very triangular looking cat. And I can remember all of it. I wish I could get hold of the old animation files that were all on these DAT tapes, because it wasn't skinned. It was all broken joints, but I remember it moving around. It looked great in Maya or Paranimator. And then once I put these textures on it, it was running around. It looked fantastic little cat. And then I can remember then I started learning a little bit more about the system, and the textures were too high resolution. And I think when we looked at the way the N64 handled a lot of the texturing, sometimes if you put too much detail, everything started to look a little bit muddy. So we stripped back all of those textures and just went with more of a vertex shaded colouring technique. And that was, I think, that picture that I put on the internet at that time was the very low polygon Timber the Tiger character, which was very boxy. But yeah, that's how we started off. And then it didn't make it in because that game became something else. And then when we'd finished with DKR, we started to make Dinosaur Planet, and the first character, because I was the main graphics guy on that to begin with, was the biped character was going to be Timber, because we thought we could still use these claws and get him to climb up and down rock faces and stuff like that. But again, he changed again into a wolf, and then became Saber, and then he became Fox. So, but that's, I don't know whether anyone will ever see Timber, but he's there. He's right in the center of the box on Diddy Kong Racing. So you know what? Yeah, now I realize like he's dead center because he's like, I'm the real star. It was me. Don't forget me. Yes. Diddy there overtaking him. I don't know how old the Stamper's little boy is now, but he's gonna be like, oh, now I'm Timber. Hey everybody, I'm like in my 30s at this point. Actually, something that I also remembered in between now and then, and I don't know if this was even a rare project or if it might have gone somewhere else, but Donkey Kong Racing. This was meant to be like a sort of successor or sequel to Diddy Kong Racing. Were you guys involved with that as well at some point?
I wasn't really. I know Ben Cullum was working on that one. It looked really good and it looked really fun, but it didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, because there was only ever the one and only. I mean, the branding, the logo, and it looks so much like it, and clearly they had some of the same characters, carried over and stuff. What was there any word about like what? I mean, because I know this was around the time that the Microsoft buyout and stuff happened, of course. But do you guys have any insight about like what happened with this thing?
No, I think it just didn't really get going. I don't know whether somebody didn't like it or anything, but anyway, it was really cool.
It was, yeah,
good fun.
Would have been neat. Would have loved to ride on some rhinos. Well, okay, so let's finally now move into probably one of the big reasons why I wanted to talk to you guys to begin with. So it was, of course, earlier this year, by fates, by whatever means, there was an entire ROM that was leaked of what was to be the N64 game Dinosaur Planet. At a stage that none of us ever really even knew existed. The world was not aware that there was at one point a version that existed that was the N64 iteration, but had Fox in place of the character before we eventually got the GameCube version. And looking at the game, there was so much that people have learned. There's still things that people are far more dedicated than I are trying to piece together about this thing. And like I'd mentioned before, this is another game, much like with Diddy Kong Racing, that of course was not something that you guys could talk about on Rare Replay because it was a Nintendo property, or it became a full-on first-party Nintendo property. But so Dinosaur Planet is so fascinating to me because Rare games in that era, they fed our imaginations as children, but this was clearly to me like, oh, they're really trying to make something that has like lore and like a real like in-depth kind of story with all these characters and everything. And so I've other than the one interview that I saw that you talked about, Kev, where you just showed some concept art and stuff, I don't know, like, kind of the conception of this game. I know that this was a big thing at the time. I know that Nintendo was really, really intrigued about it, even before it became Starfox Adventures. But what was the origin point of this project? Like, how did this thing kind of get off the ground?
As Dinosaur Planet?
Yes, yeah. So the very original, like, first concept of this, back of just, like, let's make a 3D Zelda-style adventure game.
That was pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, Zelda was there, and we wanted to move on from making because at Diddy Kong Racing, originally on Diddy Kong Racing, there was going to be more of an adventure element, and we really pleased with how it all turned out, because it was certainly, it was named Adventure Racers as a working title to begin with. And I think there was probably a little bit more planned for the adventure side of it, and it worked really well. The achievements and then racing to sort of progress throughout this game. It wasn't just race after race. There was an exploration element to it and a slight platforming element to it. But I think we wanted to take what we didn't do in DKR and just build on that. And of course, Zelda was hugely popular. And we got this 3D world inside the N64 that we wanted to really push, and it was just from moving on from 2D, because everything I'd done before was a 2D environment until we got onto DKR, and we sort of made a bigger environment to play and explore than would have been in your average racing game. But after seeing Zelda and seeing Mario on the 64, it was just made sense to, right, we've got to build a world inside this machine now, and I think also we'd got Jurassic Park, and we'd got the film, I think it was called Dragonheart, which everybody was making monsters, and anything in the movies there was some huge beast walking around there with lots of detail on, and it always looked really impressive. And so I think we had those dinosaurs in DKR, if you remember.
Of course,
that waltzed across the track.
I mean, yeah, dinosaurs
and
dragons and lizards and stuff. I mean, yeah, that was all over your guys' stuff. Absolutely.
I think the challenge, we wanted to put dinosaurs into an adventure, and we wanted, as soon as we saw all of these great looking, Sean Connery voicing this dragon with all of this amazing looking texture on it, we wanted to start and make some life forms that resemble that kind of thing, because we knew that we could bake all of the textures out in Maya and make things look a lot more rounded than they were when they were viewed at a distance. And so we said, well, I think we made some pretty high detailed looking models to begin with as tests, and we did have some dinosaurs walking around, and I think we just took the models from DKR and just smoothened them and then started retexturing and making more realistic looking stuff. But the theme was definitely to have a prehistoric planet and this time traveling tiger, I think, to be the sort of protagonist. And that was the plan. We just wanted a big sprawling adventure, and it was going to be dinosaurs because they were hugely popular at the time.
Sure. Well, and it's interesting, of course, because from that stage, then eventually, I don't know what led to having a pair of characters, but then Timber evolved into Saber, and then you also created Crystal, who has now taken on very much a life of her own in many ways. So Kevin, so did you come up with, like, was the story and lore and some of that stuff, was that also on you as well, or were you just on character design?
Mainly character design, but
okay.
To begin with, in the team, it was one of these situations where the company was growing and the team was growing. Every team started off, maybe there was a core group of people on each team, and I think the majority of that team were the DKR team, but it wasn't going to be anywhere near enough people to do what we wanted to do, so we started expanding on it. We all took some time to sort of try out new methods, and some people moved on to other projects like PD and stuff like that, but the main group of us just sort of focused on enhancing what we'd got before with DKR and started building new levels. The main designer was a guy called Lee Schuneman. He was sort of in control of the story, really. Right. And because I used to spend a lot of time with Lee, he'd say, we want this, and so can we have a character that's going to do this? And so I would go away and put together what he wanted. So yeah, you'd get involved with the design, but I didn't have anywhere near as much involvement in the story and design of the path of the game as Lee did, and I was mainly sort of on the visuals. And then as the team grew, we ended up taking on more animators, more experienced animators that really knew how to animate rather than my clunky 8-bit animation. And some concept artists. We had a guy called Nick Southam, I think it was Nick Southam, who was responsible for that picture that you're showing there now. He did some fantastic concept art, really lovely style. And so he'd take my boxy design and sort of reskin it with a better looking sort of 2D piece of artwork, sort of a bit more anime. And we also had Johnny Christensen, who was also the other main artist on DKR. And he sort of redeveloped Crystal after, because that picture that you've got there with the fur, that was my original model. Okay, gotcha. Which I built because I was also experimenting with fur at the time, because I'd just introduced that into Power Animator, or I can't remember whether it was Power Animator or Maya then, but that was my concept for it. I'd built it like that, and then I was just taking renders of that, doing it the way that we were in graphics together before, same as I did with Timber, and taking shots of it. And then I think if you look the next picture along there, that was how she ended up. I can remember texturing her, and that you can see like the little pad on her arm there, that's a render, and the boots are a render. So they're all shots from that model, and that's how she looked. And then as you can see, she's quite sort of, she's wearing something made out of animal skin or whatever, and she's got a slight sort of tribal sort of adventure-y look to her. Right. And she looks quite pretty, but it needed developing when we started talking with Nintendo about how we were going to push the characters in a different direction, and it needed to look a little bit more dynamic. So I think Johnny then took the design and moved it on a step further, and I think the picture that you can see there, all of those poses, those were Johnny's design. So that was again a reskin. So that's the Starfox Adventures crystal, obviously, and the one I did was more along the lines of what was going to be what the game was going to look like when it was originally Dinosaur Planet. So
right,
and also the main character Saber was a lot more lot less futuristic looking, a little bit more of a sort of Wizards and Warriors style outfit that it got on. So.
Yeah, the time travel aspect was taken out and of course focused a little bit more. Yeah, Dave, to switch to you for a second, because this soundtrack, which was something that by and large did survive through all the reiteration of this. What I love about the OST of what eventually was Starfox Adventures is this really feels like you were pushing the absolute limit of what the N64 could do with samples and just like atmospheric kind of stuff and all these different stylistic things, like because it's very like minimalistic compared to a lot of your other stuff. Was when you were doing the soundtrack for this, because so much of this stuff did make it into the final product, was this like a really big like self-challenge? Like what were kind of your feelings with the soundtrack of this game?
Well, we moved from the Super NES onto the N64, and the N64 actually sounded really nice. It had a really warm sound. Who'd ever done the audio code for it, we've got a really nice engine. And it probably wasn't quite as adaptable as the Super NES, but it still sounded pretty good. So it was just nice to do something where I could use bigger samples. Before I was down to a lot of but very tiny samples on the Super NES. So to actually have a bit of memory and for sounds to sound a bit, an oboe to actually sound like an oboe and things like that, it was very nice. It was also very nice to experiment with, as you say, atmosphere. So there's a bit more of a sound design content in it. So the ambiences aren't necessarily music, but something that's, how do you say it, smudged between, blur the lines between music and sound design. And I really enjoy that kind of stuff. And it was nice to do something as well, because I don't think in games there's often too much music. That's not to say that the sound isn't important, because it's incredibly important, but sometimes it doesn't need to be just music. I think it needs to sort of be a musical sound design element in there, and that gave me a great opportunity to explore that.
I really love, and I know that eventually another new one was added for what became, I think, Thorntail Hollow, but I love this tune here, Swapstone Hollow, for the original version of the hub world, where and another one of those classic kind of N64 MIDI channel fade type things where like you'd move around and like the instruments would come in and out and different layers and stuff. Because this was, I was looking at the build, like this hub world was pretty huge. Like it was really connected to like everything.
And again, you wouldn't want the same tune all the time whilst you're wandering around there, because you could be on there for hours. So if you always have the same tune, you'd go nuts, wouldn't you, listen to that?
Yeah, absolutely. God, there's so much. Like I know I'm not even going to be able to ask everything I could think of, but like, because just it's. I looked at all the stuff that people could dig out from that ROM, like all the cutscenes and like seeing like how like expressive for N64 low poly models, like they felt very well like animated and constructed in how they were like portraying, and even for like the voice performances were pretty good as well. I found there was one thing in particular. Kev, did you design Drakor?
Show me Drakor again.
I'll pull up Drakor. So he was.
I don't think I did.
Very cool.
No.
Yeah, so he was sadly a very
No, that would be Johnny.
Okay. This character is so intriguing.
Yeah, looks
to me.
awesome, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it was this was the biggest bummer I realized in retrospect, because he was sadly kind of downgraded to just a non-speaking kind of on rails boss in the final product. But I found this cutscene he's like talking to Saber, and there's this whole like dramatic like, you do not understand the Chimerian hearts and the Quanatalachu and all this stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but this would have I would have been so absolutely obsessed with this as a 10-year-old. Like, if I knew the full context of like what was going on with all this. I know people are kind of trying to piece together like what was going on with the story from a lot of the voice clips that were in there and everything. But I
loved the opening sequence with General Scales on the galleon.
Yeah.
I can remember we put that together. Obviously, I remember putting it together the first time.
Yes.
On the N64, and we'd got the animation sequencer that I think Rob Harrison had made. He was the lead software engineer on DKR, and so he enhanced the engine. I can't remember whether it was yourself I was telling last time about the editor that they put together to allow us to put the sequences into the games, and it was just so lovely being able to just switch an expression on a character. Because we'd got these just sort of morph targets to hit. You could make the character open his mouth, close his mouth, and the eyebrows go up, and you had a lot of control over a character's expression for something which now, when you look at it, it's such a crude system compared to what people have got to play with now. But even then, that sequence, when I look at it now and you see that screenshot there, it just felt so atmospheric. And I can remember putting another sequence together when I think Crystal was on a barge or a boat or something. She was going along I vaguely remember sort of going along some water through some tunnels or something. And I just remember you were really sort of getting into the sequence that you were putting together because you were calling on the music. And then I can remember the Michael Kaywood, who was one of the animators who lives over in the States now. I think he's got his own animation studio, but he was really fantastic animator. It was really... I can remember him getting really into it with his mirror and looking at his expression on the face and moving these characters. So it was actually quite nice when we moved to the next system because we'd suddenly got a lot more polygons and colours and everything to play with. But I'd forgotten about this, as I say, when I obviously spent a lot of time working on it to begin with, but I'd forgotten all about what it looked like and how established it actually was on the N64 and what we'd actually achieved with a completely different genre of machine, a different generation. And you look at it now, and all you really wanted was a different frame rate and a bit of high resolution, and it was nearly there, but
I was amazed to see, like, because I just peeled through hours of footage, like the game. I mean, of course, it was like lots of bugs and stuff, obviously, but like the design, like I didn't realize. Wow, the dungeons are like pretty much what they were in the final product. Like there was more stuff. There were other areas we didn't see. There's a part of me like I still have an attachment to Uka, Duka, Jukbu in general scales, what we got in the end. But but I don't know, there's a part of me that looks back on like what this almost was, and I'm just like, God, I this is kind of the game that I sort of wish that we got in some sense.
It needed to have been a year further on in development, though. Really, it was coming to the end of the life of that console, and
I mean,
had it been out earlier, it might have been a different story.
Even General Scales, I'm remembering, I think, wasn't it that there wasn't enough time, and he wasn't even a boss. I think he just shows up at the end. He's a cutscene, and then Andros is like, "Just kidding, I'm the final boss." See ya. It was, which, and I mean, and I don't blame you guys one, but obviously, like, a big expansive thing, because there was nothing else quite like this that you guys had done before. I'm sure this was
it was hugely ambitious, completely.
Yeah. I know that with Dream, I feel all the stories I've heard about it becoming Banjo-Kazooie was kind of part of that, of like, we need to just make something that is more humanly possible to accomplish, because it was just so ambitious and so
well, we always aimed high,
Yeah,
and then,
absolutely. God. Oh, of course, this is a good one. Discovery Falls here is one of my favorite, which I realized I didn't find out until way later. There's a little tune mixed in here that eventually became, I guess, Crystal's infamous sexy saxophone theme. Which has become a thing of legend now.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. I mean, just because it was always like, I mean, okay, People are gonna kill me for this. I'm sure you guys have to know by now, you know, the divisive nature of Crystal as a character on the internet, you know, the last 20 years of people either detest her and revile her for quote-unquote ruining the Star Fox franchise, or they absolutely adore her and worship the ground she walks on. And so she's made quite an impact, perhaps more than ever conceived as just, you know, a cute little, you know, innocently made, you know, female main character for a video game project.
Oh, so I'm having to look this up because this is, you know, I'm completely oblivious of this.
Oh,
so,
it's I let's just say as I'm pulling up images, I have to be very careful with Googling Crystal. I'll put it that way.
Oh, no.
It's funny. It's an impact certainly. But yeah. No, it's funny. Yeah, that tune, that da-da-da, you just heard it a second ago. Da-da-da-da-da-da. People think of that as just like, wow, she's so beautiful. She's my intrigue into Anther character's sexual awakening for certain people.
What did I make?
Oh Lord.
Yeah, that's always going to happen, isn't it? I think she's not the only character that's gone through that.
Certainly not. Well, and I guess on that note, the story of how this eventually shifted, we'll get into that a little bit, because I know that for a long time, the general gist was out there of Mr. Miyamoto saw something in the characters and felt, hey, this could fit within my Star Fox universe. Why don't we talk about this? At the very bare minimum of that has always kind of been floating out there. And then you expanded upon this in that interview that you did, the text one, where you showed some of that old concept art and kind of what it became. So the process of shifting it over, I you know, at the time I thought, oh, you know, it's such a shame because, you know, Dinosaur Planet seemed like it could have been the more interesting, you know, final product. But I realized, yeah, at the time it must have been thrilling of, oh my God, this legend of, you know, game development wants to have this project be made into a first-party, you know, thing in his creative vision. Like, oh my God, that must have been so exciting. And I was reading you talking about some of the redesigns and things like that. So, any stories or any kind of things about like that part of the process of like, okay, this is going to be a Star Fox game now?
Kev probably knows more than me.
Aside from just going to the show. I can't remember which show it was, but we went to America and we were ready to show it, and I don't think we did show it because there was a meeting scheduled, and I mean I was gobsmacked when it was mentioned that they wanted to take on our game and make it something which, in my opinion, was a far bigger franchise than this was ever going to be, because it was, you know, it was Nintendo, and they've got a huge fan base for Star Fox as it was, and it just seemed to make sense. Everything worked. It was on a planet, and it was very easy to work the story out. We went over to Japan and had a fantastic week there, ironing out all of the things that we needed to change and what modifications needed making to the characters. And as I say, I didn't think it was going to happen to begin with. I thought we were just going to continue with Dinosaur Planet, which was a slightly different atmosphere, slightly different flavour to the game because it was less spacey. Mm-hmm. But I was really pleased that it happened. But as I say, had a great time, and it just made the whole experience of making the game that much more memorable for me, because it all then meant I went to Japan to work with some of the greatest game designers and artists that in video game history to put together our game. So yeah, I was very pleased, and I'm sure, I mean, maybe we'll get a reboot one day, and maybe you'll see what it was originally, if it's just the characters that were originally earmarked to go in the game. Perhaps it will get a reboot, but at the moment, I think where it is, I look at it on the shelf. I've got the game in my little cabinet, and I look at it, and just everything about it seems to work for me. The style of it, and the fact that it's linked into Nintendo sort of heritage now because it's got the whole Starfox element. It's just quite sort of an honour to have our characters sort of merged in to make something. It's a pretty wonderful game.
I feel like the fact that they continue to make Crystal British is kind of the nice sort of remnant of the humble beginnings of how that impacted that franchise.
It's probably just down to who was available or who was ballsy enough to do the voiceovers in there. It's like, yeah, I'll do it.
I mean, you know, because like I said, when I was showing you that clip of the guy that was doing an impression of you is tricky. You know, the fact that they continue, you know, the woman that's, I think she's also Samus, the voice of Crystal, and the newer stuff. You know, the fact that they chose, like, no, we'll make her British still, you know. You know, I felt that was kind of a nice, you know, nod to you guys.
As you would be on a planet somewhere out in the middle of the universe.
Sure,
with
yeah.
dinosaurs.
There's always the one with
British accent, of course.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, all sci-fi has taught me that aliens are all British, as I've
aliens
learned,
and villains.
and yes, and villains. Sorry, guys. Wow, yeah, well, fans seem to be painstakingly trying to take the remnants of that build and all the stuff that was in it, and you know, attempting to compile something. To try and make some kind of legible, you know...
I should finish off the graphics for it, shouldn't I? Do the remaining animations.
Well, I'm even
because I'm still in the early millennium point with my animation skills, I think. So yeah. Probably
don't give yourself some more credit, please. I gotta say real quick, David, that this is one that I'm playing right now. I sadly did not make the final cut of Starfox Adventures, but I guess for what I saw, it looked like an amazing looking, I think, final boss battle with Drakor. But this tune, I really like a lot. I don't know if you're...
Can I just say the one that you were playing just. What was it? The something Falls.
Oh, Discovery Falls was that was just before this.
Oh, yeah. You know, I haven't heard because we did the little interview a little while ago when the ROM was out and everything, and I looked at the videos, but I'm busy. I didn't have that much time to sit and listen and watch it all because I watched so much of it and so yeah, I remember it now, but I haven't heard that music for I don't know how maybe 20 years.
Wow.
And seeing the word Discovery Falls on there, and as soon as I heard it, I can remember thinking at the time when Dave did that music, it just sounded like, and looking at the colours there, now, the atmosphere, everything was right. It sounded so cinematic that Discovery Falls. It was a brilliant tune. I love it. And so when I saw it there, I just looked at it. I thought, God, that was a really good tune.
Oh, it's a good. Cape Claw's really beautiful as well. The Cloud Runner Temple is another really nice one as well. There's so many. This is such a good. This OST is such a gem. I truly mean that.
Oh, cheers. You're playing stuff that I haven't listened to since I last wrote a note on it. So it's quite a trip down memory lane, especially this one. I really haven't heard this since I put the last note on it.
Because I mean, well, it's crazy because to know that like all of these, you know, I heard them on the GameCube, and I'm like, oh wow, this sounds like the next level of video game music. But the fact that like it was all working on an N64, like you guys really did push the envelope in terms of the technical, ability of it. Because it does. It sounds very movie-esque. I imagine also moving on to later, getting to remix some of the, I don't know if, I forget if Koji Kondo did Star Fox 64's tunes, but getting to remix some of those themes must have been a real trip with, the Meteor Herd and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was all good fun. It was nice to take the Star Fox themes and do something else with them. And I suppose that the Japanese type of themes are quite different, so to actually try and meld them into the Dinosaur Planet world was quite a challenge, but a very enjoyable one.
I did love that, and once again, I didn't even realize until way later that that kind of rock remix, that hard rock remix Slippy's listening to, that it's the Meteor, the Asteroid Belt theme.
Yes.
Which I was like, oh, that's great. Yeah, that was a great inclusion. I know we're starting to get to the end here. Good Lord, I could talk to you guys forever about all this stuff. Well, I guess to kind of transition out of Dinosaur Planet, because I want to also again talk about the stuff you guys are doing now. For it being such an ambitious project, and in the end, of course, it had to be pared down a little bit, and to something that would be able to be released on time, because this was, of course, kind of the last little hurrah for the Nintendo Rare era. But with something as big and sprawling as ambitious, I mean, my first game I made was an RPG because I'm insane. I don't know. Do you guys have any ambitions like that to do a big sprawl? I don't know necessarily for like Salamandos or otherwise, but like a big sprawling lore heavy kind of story, whether it be a game or animation or otherwise. Is that something that you guys still think about doing, or is that still too kind of like too much energy to spend on?
No, not at all. I mean, I love ambitious projects, and that was a great project to work on. And if to have the opportunity to do something like that again, I'd jump at. Yeah, absolutely. Anything where you can push the envelope of what's possible and try and really stretch the technology that you've got to make something even more immersive and impressive would be great. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. If you've got, I mean, we've got the tools now. The tools are so much better than they were 20 years ago, and also the people that they've learned to use the tools. We've got a lot more talent out there than there was 20 years ago, and games have got bigger, so they don't seem as enormous now because I mean, even at Playtonic, that we're a very small team to begin with when we did Yooka-Laylee, and then and the second game. With revisiting all of the levels when you could change the course of events for each one with the environments. They're both quite big games, and that was done with a relatively small team. So the right group of people with the right tools on a system which now you're not worrying about having 22 many polygons for a character's ear. You can. It's doable now. So yeah, I'd love to see something like that. And we're still quite young, aren't we, Dave?
Young at heart, absolutely.
I'm involved with video games now, and it takes up all day, and then I take a break. And then I begin working on the Salamandos story and everything, and it's there. It's all blueprinted out. It's just a matter of me drawing it up. But maybe one day, at the moment we've got to push it and get people to know what it is, and then maybe it'll turn into a video game one day, or a cartoon or something. But that would be the dream. But at the moment, it's a project, and we'll see how it goes.
I hope
it's a fun project as well.
Yeah,
it's fun to be working on some, I suppose, self-created ideas and seeing where they will go and what will happen. But it's all good fun. Yeah.
Well,
it's the first time in a long time that when we were first at Rare, I was you were left to your own devices.
Yeah.
A lot of us were there, a software engineer and a designer / artist, and you would just go down the path of making a game, and it wasn't always a great game because you weren't always a great designer. WrestleMania, and so now. The nice thing about what we're doing at the moment is anything goes. We can push it however we want, and because it isn't not a game, we're not restricted to any kind of gameplay elements. It is a story, and so it's just nice having complete freedom. It's also nice being part of a team, but to be able to have full control over something, I feel like Chris Seaver.
Well, yeah, he's quite a good. Well, I mean, he's got what's it called? Gory detail going on for him as well, which I'm very happy about. And it's so I'm really thrilled for you guys. I really am. I think back to I interviewed Grant maybe a decade ago when Playtonic was just a thought. And he'd mentioned something about we got a character running around in Unity on an iPad right now. We don't know if we're going to do this Kickstarter, and then of course, big success with that. And then having Chris Sutherland on a few years ago when I was just starting on my own game, and all the stuff that I learned from you guys, and Yooka-Laylee had just come out, and I was like, what do you guys got going on next? He's like, what do you want to see next? And I'm like, I want to see everything. I want to please
bring it on.
Please, like give me a new adventure kart racer. Give me a Dinosaur Planet equivalent. Please. Like I'm so, not only grateful for everything, all the experiences that and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people that you guys gave us with the amazing work that you did, but I'm also so glad that you guys are continuing to do such great work. Both on your own and with other folks as well, with all these guys. It's been crazy. I've literally been with your guys' work for my whole life, and
it brings it home.
Yeah, and so
I think one of the nice things now, more recently, is just with the social media side of things. You can hook up with people that you haven't spoken to for a long time or worked with for a long time, and they're all still there. And they all do the same. They take a break, or they work on a project for a while, or they join this company, and people move around, but they've all still got the same ideas in their head. And it's only a matter of time before people, like I say, we did with Playtonic and with other projects and other companies, you can see this. I think in particular where we're from, that there's a bit of a hub around where the Rare premises is, and a lot of the people moved from all over the country to work there, and so lots of little companies sort of broke off, and there's a lot of creativity sort of scattered around the Midlands, and but even beyond that, just people that I've managed to communicate with are still very much creative and willing to do new projects and stuff. I think it's only a matter of time before people do start working together and put in a next new big thing, another Yooka-Laylee together or something like that. So, it's just exciting because I think everybody eventually has got that project that they wanted to put together, and it's just a matter of all of the planets getting aligned. All the dinosaur planets getting aligned.
the majestic 8 will align together, and they will be focused through. I'm going to stop.
How did you know?
Because I've watched that cartoon a lot. It's really, because it's so, sorry. I keep going back to that because it's just so like, oh god, my imagine. I feel like I'm 10 again. It's crazy. Wow. Well, guys, thank you again. Thank you so much for making the time. Please, before we bring this home, once again, please plug DK Creations, where people can find you and what you guys are working on. I will do everything within my power to help with getting you guys out there as you duly deserve. So please.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Go, Dave. Go on, Dave. You say it.
Well, if you head on over to dkcreationslimited.com, you will find a project there called Salamandos, and you can watch episode 1 and episode 2 now. We have a Christmas special coming out, hopefully. And episode 3, perhaps in the new year.
Yes.
Is that right, Kev?
And we'll be doing that gig over in Norway in a few weeks' time. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody in Sandefjord for that. And also, if we don't speak to you between now and the new year, make sure you have a fantastic Christmas.
Yes.
Because we're nearly there.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah. Well, we got Thanksgiving coming up. I'm going to stuff myself in another couple weeks after this comes out.
You see, you get the extra holiday. So
yeah.
Twice as much turkey as we get.
Thanksgiving. Well, I mean, we're all fat Slavi Americans, so what can I say? And you can also absolutely follow Kev and Dave on Twitter at Kev_Bayliss and at David_Wise. Please follow them and go check out all their work. Please pick up Salamandos, support them. Do you guys have a Patreon as well, or no? People could just like buy this stuff straight up.
Just the website and just Twitter. Really, we've got a Facebook page, but as I say, we've only got so many hours in the day to manage them, so it's mainly Twitter and our website. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, everybody in the comments, you know what? Here, how about this? In case you guys are morbidly curious to look at YouTube comments, a dangerous territory to go to. Please, in the comments below, leave some of your memories of your favorite projects that these two gentlemen have worked on. Any other comments or compliments or memories or anything like that to share whatsoever. And super appreciate it. I have a lot more fun stuff planned for the rest of the year on my own channel as well. But this has been lovely. This has been a great. This is my first Kirblog that I've done since I've like a proper interview one with guests that I've done since I launched my own game. So thank you guys so much for everything you've done and for being here today. And we'll catch you all on the next one. I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Super.
it.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.